Well, hello and welcome back to Supposedly Fun. I am Greg, here today to do a bit of an October reading check-in since we are in the middle of the month. If you remember, if you follow along, that is, in the month of September, I had a bit of a struggle with my reading and managed to keep pace with the amount of books I had been reading earlier in the year by taking a little bit of a break from some of the stuff I had been reading and reading some kind of gimme books toward the end of the month. In October, I have been having a similar problem. I'm just having a lot of hard time getting things going. We are halfway through the month, and I have only finished one book, and that was on audio. I am starting to make progress on Light in August by William Faulkner again, which is great, especially since that's a buddy read. But I'm just really having a hard time getting going. So I was doing a little bit of soul searching, and here's what I'm going to do. I don't actually have the TBR that I decided to do for the month of October in front of me. You may recall, again, if you follow along, that I had been torn about the idea of doing a TBR for this month anyway, and I did one. So I don't have it in front of me because it doesn't really matter. I am throwing it out, not going to do it anymore. Here is my logic behind that. I was doing a little bit of soul searching into why I feel like I'm having a hard time right now. And basically, I think I'm stressing myself out because there are so many books that I want to read, and there are a lot of readathons and things like that going on. So I feel like I've gotten in my head a little bit. And because there are so many readathons going on, I'm pushing some of the things that I really want to read this year away. So I feel like I'm getting stressed on the one hand, but I'm also not going to lie to you, getting a little frustrated because I feel like I'm not getting to the things I wanted to be getting to next. So the book that I have finished for the month of October so far is The Woman in White by Wilkie Collins, which is perfect because it checks a box for both the Victober readathon, and Spookathon as well. So I have a book that covers both. I am currently halfway through the audiobook for Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell, which all checks another box for Victober. By the way, that book is a goddamn delight. I had never read anything by Elizabeth Gaskell before, and it is really good. I am very much enjoying it. I'm only halfway through, so there's plenty of room for it to go downhill in the last half, but this could easily be one of my top 10, perhaps, depending how the last half goes, perhaps one of my top 5 reads of the year. I'm just enjoying it so much, and I will talk about it more once I'm actually done, but it's so good. And this is why I did want to participate in Victober, and I'm glad, if nothing else, I have 2 books that will qualify for it, because I was going to say weird English classes in high school. Weird's probably not the word. I went to a high school in San Francisco that set up English classes as if they were college courses. And what that meant is for each half of the school year, from September to June, you would choose a class to take. And it could be anything. I took a Shakespeare class one semester. I took a class on the comic spirit. I took a science fiction class. I am blank. Oh, I took another one about film adaptations. So it was about books and then the act of turning them into movies, which was really interesting. So I loved all of those classes, but the penalty for that is that I have not read a lot of books that most people read when they get into high school, or at least I did not read them in high school when you ordinarily would. For instance, I've never read any of the Brontes. I would not have read Catcher in the Rye unless I read it on my own. And at the same time, I read To Kill a Mockingbird 3 times for school. Once because I chose to do a report for civics in my senior year. Point just being, I did not get a lot of the classics that most people do when they're in high school. Even with the Shakespeare, I took 2 Shakespeare classes because I took one regular class and then I opted into a summer class because they were going to go up to Ashland, Oregon and go to a Shakespeare festival there. I am really going down on a tangent on this, but it's interesting to me and I hope it is to you as well. So I took 2 different Shakespeare classes in high school, is the point of the story, and yet I have never read Hamlet or Macbeth. And yet I've read Cymbeline. So, and I saw Cymbeline performed. So, it was an interesting experience. And yet I also have read plays by Joe Orton in the comic spirit, and I really enjoyed them. But things like Victober are good prompts for me to fill in some gaps in my reading that partially resulted because I didn't read the things that most people read when they're in high school. Again, Their Eyes Were Watching God. I haven't read it. Most people read that in high school. I didn't. So it's good that I have these, but here's kind of what I'm looking at for the rest of the month. Obviously, like I said, I'm halfway through Cranford by Elizabeth Gaskell. I forgot that I was on the wait list for Normal People by Sally Rooney. And I don't know if I'm going to get to it this month. I have it. It's due in 9 days. If I finish Cranford, I will probably get it in, but I'm not super enthusiastic about it. The further I get from reading Conversations with Friends, the more kind of reluctant I feel to get to Normal People. I want to do it. I feel like I just need space, and I don't know if this is enough space, so we shall see. Definitely, I'm going to finish Light in August by William Faulkner. This is a buddy read with Doris. I'm finally making progress on it. It's very interesting, so that is something I'm going to do and continue to do in October. That was on my TBR. Also on my TBR, I believe, was Duck's Newburyport, which I have from the library, and I have not made a whole lot of progress on it because even though it's a library book, I am trying to keep pace on William Faulkner. But this is due on Sunday. So I'm thinking what's going to happen is I'm going to end up turning it into the library late. And I apologize to the person who is after me on the anybody who's after me on the wait list for this book at the library, even though they are likely not watching this video anyway, and will have no idea that it was me, that I am the culprit, who will be holding on to Duck's Newburyport a little bit longer, because I will not be able to get to all that by Sunday, most likely. And then I'm throwing out most of the rest of the TBR that I had. Blacklight by Kimberly Kim Parsons is something I'm going to try to get to this month. This will be a buddy read as well. And I want to go back to my Pulitzer Prize project because I feel like I kind of started by reading a supplemental read, but I want to read the first one, His Family by Ernest Poole. This is the one book that won the first Pulitzer Prize. And it's something that I had chosen to do, and I really want to get to it. And of course, along with that, I am definitely prioritizing Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. This is something that I am swearing to myself I will get to by the end of the year. It's going to happen. Maybe in October, maybe not, I don't know. But I am going to prioritize it. If you have not heard, and if you haven't heard, who are you, where are you, what do you not pay attention to the news? This book was the co-winner of the Booker Prize for this year. I don't know why I'm doing this. I gotta stop. So anyway, it's a co-winner. I already did a whole video on that. I will link that down below. Gave all of my thoughts on it. But from the very beginning, this was the book from the long list and then from the short list that jumped out to be the most and that I am most eager to get to. I have also delved even further into her backlist since I did the video yesterday. So I had already ordered a copy of Mr. Loverman by Bernardine Evaristo. I am now also eyeing Blonde Roots. Part of why I'm really happy that she won the award is that it looks like she has a really solid backlist of books. And I think she seems to be a writer who deserves to be more well-known and more widely read. And I'm very excited to get to reading her myself. It's just kind of a shame that she had to share the spotlight. But I already did a whole video on that. So I will leave it alone for now. So those are the books that I'm looking at for the rest of October. Now we're already halfway through the month. Will I get to all of them? I don't know. I definitely will be trying to fit these three in because two of them are buddy reads and one of them is a library book. So hopefully that will happen. Will the rest of them happen? I don't know, but I think that alone takes a lot of the pressure off of me. I feel a little bit free again. Maybe I can think about nonfiction November or novellas in November. I already picked up a couple of books that might be good for novellas in November. So I think what worked really well for me with Women in Translation Month is that I didn't follow the prompts for the actual week, but I did find some books that were short, that fit the theme, that I had been interested in reading anyway, and that I could fit into the rest of the flow of my reading. I think that's why Women in Translation Month was a big hit for me. I think I was a little ambitious with these, considering everything else I wanted to get in. So I need to either scale back the readathons I participate in, or I need to approach them a little bit more like I did Women in Translation Month, where if something happens to fit into my schedule and meet the criteria, okay, great. Or maybe I can just find something that I have been wanting to fit in and use it as an excuse to get around to reading it. Now, nonfiction November does fit in. I really do like reading nonfiction. Historically, I do not. I did not read nonfiction at all for a really long time, and I finally, in recent years, have gotten around that. I love nonfiction now. I especially now love listening to nonfiction books on audiobook because who was it? Somebody made a comment that they think of them almost as if they're podcasts. And I absolutely do that because I started out listening to podcasts and then I started swapping in audiobooks instead of podcasts because part of my worry with audiobooks was that I worried I wasn't going to pay attention to them. And the fact that I could follow podcasts gave me the confidence to do it. And to me, don't get me wrong, novels are great in audio format, but I feel like it's a really perfect format for nonfiction books in particular. I'm on the wait list, for example, for Malcolm Gladwell's new book. And because he has been doing his podcast, Revisionist History, for a while, he structured the audiobook to be a little bit more like that kind of podcast format, which I think is fascinating. I can't wait to get to that. Point just being, I would like to fit in some nonfiction November. I would like to fit in some novellas in November. I haven't decided how I'm going to do that yet. We shall see. Because even if I don't get to these two, Girl, Woman, Other, and His Family, in October, I want to get to them in November. Like I said, I have made a pledge to read Girl, Woman, Other by the end of the year, and I desperately want to officially launch my Pulitzer Prize project before the end of the year. So these are going to happen. Maybe in November. I almost dropped a book. Sorry, Bernadine. So, yeah, but I feel already much more free. I love the idea that I could potentially start November with a bit of a clean slate and go from there and figure out the rest of my reading year because this sounds shocking. We are almost at the end of the year. And I think another thing, I really stressed myself out at the end of September because I wanted to keep pace with the rest of the year and the books that I had been reading. So every year of the month so far, I have managed to read either 7 or 8 books. I think there was one month where I read 10. Yes, there was. So that is the most that I have read since I started keeping track when I joined Goodreads in 2008. I'm sure there were years before that where I read more. But since I started keeping track, that is the most books that I have read in a year. And I stressed myself out at the end of September to keep pace, and I'm letting go of that in October as well. If I end up, so I got Woman in White. If I finish Cranford, Light in August, Ducks Newburyport, and Light in August, that's 5 books. If that's what it is, I'm fine with that. 5 books is what it is. There's nothing to be ashamed of. So, we'll see how it goes. But anyway, that's my plan. That's my new plan for the month of October and my reading life. I would love to hear what you have been reading. Tell me about your Victober reads so far, your Spookathon reads so far. I've been seeing a lot of TBR and planning for Nonfiction November, which has me excited, even if I might not participate a whole lot in it. So tell me whatever you're reading, whatever you're planning to read for the rest of the year, including for the readathons, drop it down in comments down below. I'd love to hear it. And if you think I should, we've already fangirled about Girl, Woman, Other in my other video a little bit, but if you have thoughts about any of these other books as well, I'd love to hear those. So, having said all that, thank you for taking the time to watch this video and any of my others that you may have watched. It is always appreciated, and I will be back. Until then, happy reading.